PodCandy,
a podcast about cults, crimes, and killers. Today we're looking at the case of Keith Hunter Jespersen, better known as the Happy Face Killer.
Jespersen was a long-haul truck driver who murdered at least 8 women between 1990 and 1995. He got the nickname because he signed letters to police and media with a hand-drawn smiley face.
His first known victim was Tanya Bennett in Oregon. Another couple falsely confessed to her murder, which frustrated Jespersen enough to start writing anonymous confessions, first on bathroom walls, then in letters.
Those letters revealed specific details only the killer would know. He wanted to take credit and control the narrative. That need for recognition was a major part of his psychology.
His job made him hard to trace. He traveled constantly, and many of his victims were women living on the margins, often not identified for years.
Jespersen was arrested in 1995 after confessing to the murder of his girlfriend. He eventually admitted to several more killings and is serving multiple life sentences.
It's a disturbing case, not just because of the violence, but because of how long he operated before being caught.
It's a case that reminds us how easily violence can hide in plain sight.
Outside my window, it's only raining. When the wind blows, I feel pain. I don't need no doctor, baby, I'm not sick. My body's been locked up, heartbroken ever since.
Can I just say something? I
Sure.
had the hardest time finding this to watch because isn't this so Happy Face, Anna Lee Ashford, and Dennis Quaid, right? They did like a dramatized recent version of this. So it kept pulling that one up. I was Googling, anyway, for all of those listening, I personally watched it. I couldn't find it on Max. I watched it on Prime, and I had to technically pay $2.99, but I had a credit from all of my purchases. Very bad to say I buy a lot on Amazon because I'm trying not to. I'm trying to support local business, but I do buy a lot. So anyway, that's just my first initial thought off the bat.
It was hard for me to find, but I did find it on Amazon Prime, and I believe I had to extend my membership, or I had to do something, but it's called The Happy Face Killer, and it's one episode, and it's interesting. Wasn't my favorite case that we've explored.
Agreed.
But he definitely was a scary guy, and a guy that really had no remorse, and was just, when he was confessing to what he did, it was kind of depressing,
I think that this is the type of thing, and I believe I've said this before, that keeps me away from going back on dating apps, because this is like a dude who was very large in stature, but kind of unassuming, right? Like he wasn't like somebody that was like doing a lot in his life. He was married for years. He had some kids, but he wasn't like known for like murdering as a younger fella. I'll say fella, right?
Yeah.
So but these are the type of guys, like he's in a bar, he meets these women, and he must have some sort of magnetism.
He was cute. He was a little
He
cute.
was cute. He was cute.
Huge
Yeah,
hands.
Yeah,
Huge hands.
What does that say about him, Stacey? Huge
Well,
hands.
Huge feet. Huge nose.
That's how. Yeah,
Huge,
maybe huge nose.
I hear where you're going with that.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, women were like, this guy must have some sort of
mojo.
Of mojo.
Well, he said that he would say, well, she wanted a party. So, she wanted a party, so we went out. And, I told her twice, not to do that. And on the third time, I just strangled her.
Like
where's the line?
Unremorseful.
Yeah, but it's like, she didn't listen twice. So on the third time, I killed her. And then he stepped on her neck and then he threw her. And
so what happened with you and her? She started to hit me with a scam about wanting me to give her another $40. And I said no about 3 times. And the fourth no, I put my hand around her and I strangled her. She was hustling you, and she wouldn't take no for an answer. She wouldn't back. I said, I paid you $40. I ain't gonna pay you another $40. That's it. How dare her after I've given her what she wanted to begin with.
The thing that was about this case that was also kind of depressing was that they really, even though this guy was confessing to all this stuff and showing them the place where he threw the body and all that, it still felt like they couldn't really pin it on him fully. It was really hard for them to gather enough actual evidence to convict this guy. And they're also, I think there's 5 known victims that, 4 or 5. I know he's serving 4 consecutive life sentences. And I asked a lawyer friend about that. And he said, usually each sentence is for each person, each victim or each family. So let's say 4 people were positively identified, but there's still some that haven't been identified. There's some Jane Does out there. And that's really sad to me. When there's people out there that haven't been discovered and they can't recognize the faces. I don't know what that process is.
And also, like, somebody else confessed to the murder. So, like, his first one, a woman concocted a story to get her deadbeat boyfriend into prison. So that's a complicated issue as well. But I didn't get the sense, and again, like you, I was into it, but I wasn't like enthralled like I am some of these other cases that I've watched before. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get the sense that I know he had a father who was very, hard on him, but I didn't get the sense that he was killing in his early years. And I think this is a question for the doctor. What clicks in somebody to suddenly start murdering?
Because everybody kept saying, well, he's a nice guy. He's, from the town, how they talk to people who knew him. And it usually is like this. I mean, maybe he had a psychotic break. Maybe there was something, but it's weird. It kind of happened. Like the first one happened. He was like, oh, okay. And then it happened again. It just feels not premeditated to me. It doesn't feel like a serial killer premeditated, although it is a serial killer, I suppose. But I don't know how confident he was in what he was, let me pick up, Ted Bundy, I feel was very calculated and
Gacy.
At the end there was some messiness, but for the most part it was very calculated and motivated. In this case it feels like it was sort of like, well, maybe I'll kill her or maybe I'll fuck her,
It's kind of like it fell into his hands. He never did anything like this to his wife at all, and he was married
and I was waiting.
Years. Yeah,
I was waiting for that with those 2 adorable kids that he had.
Have you done any? I haven't done any research on the wife. Have you looked up to see what she's up to these days?
No, I haven't.
They didn't do a follow up on her. I think that was one of the issues. I wanted to kind of find out a little bit more about the childhood. They kind of nonchalantly at the end talked about his father and maybe that kind of, made him who he is today, but he didn't do anything with it. It's like it fell into his lap at the bar when he first murdered the woman, and then I got away with it. So you know what? And it's almost like women started pissing him off more and more. So he just started murdering. Oh, okay, I'm getting away with this one, getting away with the next. I'm just going to keep like murdering these women.
You may not understand, maybe you will. I've killed too many people, and it got to a point where I just didn't care. And no matter what the argument would be, I mean, it was a lot easier just to end it real quick. And that's what happened.
I completely agree. That was a sad story about one of the victim, and I'm forgetting her name right now. Her son, who spoke out a little bit and said if he had had a gun, he would have gone into the courtroom and shot Keith and himself. And he's like, but then this is very simplistic what he said. He's like, well, then he would have won. Obviously, he didn't do that. But, this caused a lot. Julie, yeah, her name was Julie. This caused a lot of pain for a lot of families. And it also felt like Keith was trying to, get his, as they said in the documentary, 15 minutes of fame. He's writing this on the bathroom walls. He's tempting people. And it's interesting when something is that obvious. It reminds me a little bit of Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. It's like, I'm the killer. Oh, no, you're not. It's like that, like, no, I love that like whole storyline of like him trying to confess and having people be like, no, we don't think no, Paul's living in London. This guy's trying to confess with the smiley face. And yet the confession from the guy it was still not solid proof. They did a handwriting analysis later, but you know what I mean? It's like, that's not solid proof, but what kind of person does it take to also want to kind of confess? Like, I don't even know if he was trying to confess. He sounded just like messy.
I mean, I honestly think we should bring Dr. John in.
Yeah, I think it's time.
I think it's time because a lot of these, we have so many questions about this, and this was Dr. John's suggestion to watch this, to watch this one. So let's. Drum roll, please. Let's bring in the doctor. The doctor is in.
Yeah, here he is.
Well, thank you. I'm opening the door from the green room and have been anxious, in particular, with this episode to come in because I so echo, Dori, what you're saying about, this is kind of mundane in a way. And I don't know if I was enthralled. I think, audience, be enthralled because this is the type of killers that are out there. What we get fed by the media and movies is, these sensational plots and sensational killing and this cat and mouse game of finding these people. And I think that was another kind of blasé part about this is that this guy kind of just showed up as you were just saying, oh, I'm the killer. Hey, everybody, killer. But I refute a couple of things on the documentary kind of highlighted, which I think you both fell into, and that is this whole thing of the fame. I don't think he showed any interest in fame at all, other than he was dumb. He was stupid and socially what should I say, socially inept, with sending a letter to his high school reunion after he confessed and been proven and sentenced to all these killings, sort of like, gee, remember me? How come nobody's paying attention?
2003 was the 30th class reunion. Keith had wrote the class a letter kind of explaining why he wasn't there. I'm sorry I will not be able to make it there for the reunion. I'm sort of in a prior engagement. Since my incarceration for being a bad boy, many of my friends have deserted me. Something about being associated with me turns them off. It was just strange to read this letter from somebody that had done what he had done. You just killed 8 women over the years, and it's like matter of fact, it's all about me. And it's not. It's about the victims and the victim's family and what they got to live with all their life.
It wasn't for fame as much. I have a theory about it, which I'll get to, but so stay tuned, everyone. But I do want to also address one of the disappointments I had with the documentary, and you both echoed this, is that I wanted more about the wife. Why didn't they interview the wife? I think that was the low-hanging fruit here. You know, like she could have told us a lot about this guy. There was just almost a sentence of, yeah, he started to turn weird. And then they didn't say anything else about it. Well, weird how? He was weird from the beginning. And what was your attraction to him? And tell us more about him, et cetera, et cetera. And his mother and father. Why didn't they dig into it? But everyone, and especially our audience, that's why we're here. We're going deeper into these cases and asking these kind of questions and hopefully giving these kind of answers of what motivates them, what's their background, why are they doing this? And that's what I think is intriguing about this case, is that the vast majority of killers out there are very much like our dear Keith here, Jespersen. They're not sensational, they're methodical, they're dumb, as opposed to, again, what movies portray as these, genius killers that are fooling the police, etc.
I didn't get the sense that he was methodical. Like, I got the sense that it kind of, again, fell into his lap, and then he acted upon annoyance.
Yeah.
Like,
you know
he
what?
would be dating a
I
lady.
take that back. That slipped out. That slipped out of me. You're exactly right. Because this is the unique thing about Mr. Jespersen here in this episode. These women all triggered something in him. Triggered something. If you look at the killings, like the one, I wrote it down here. One said something about don't do this, or I don't want to do it, or the one with she wanted $40 more. She was clearly a prostitute. And that triggered something. And each murder triggered something which he acted upon. So you're exactly right. And I take that back. It was not methodical. It was very spontaneous. And that was the other thing about, this case, which I think is important and maybe different from a lot of the killers and serial killers and mass murderers we talk about, is he wasn't a hunter. He wasn't hunting to kill, as like Ed Gein or someone like that. It just kind of came upon him, and most of the time it was a sexual interaction, again, showing his social inept. He was in these sexual situations and then something went terribly wrong. And often it was a little thing. And I'll look up what I wrote down, the quote from this one, I think it was from Tanya, said something, a key phrase. And she said, "Come on, can you just get it over with?" And boom, he blew up.
Again, I think that and forgive me, because I feel like I am kind of just, again, hell-bent on this with the wife. And yes, you're right. Like, she probably didn't want to be on this because she's probably just trying to live her life and she doesn't, want to be bothered by this. But like, he didn't snap with her. And I'm sure, and they did say she was submissive and all of that. But like, as with your patients or you dealing with this a lot, like, why later in life would he start why would these things trigger him later in life, but it didn't with girlfriends and his wife before that,
Oh, because here's a key fact, and it may sound very simplistic or fundamental. I think in his home environment, he was controlled. That's why it wasn't early on, whether it was family control. Remember, he was controlled by a very strict father and maybe a abusive father. And I think being in the family environment and also his own marital environment put some controls on him. But where did all these murders occur? He was on the road as a over the road truck driver. Freedom. I'm not controlled by this umbrella of people that are watching me and I can't do this. That's another key aspect of this whole case, which I think to me is enthralling.
So he said, you know, well, I like sex, you know, I like, you know, it's, you know, there was something sort of simple about him. I wanted to just bring this up. First of all, I watched a movie recently where a rapist was said to the woman, "Stop being such a prick tease," because she asked him something, and it angered him because she rejected him. And so I feel that there's a common thread with rapists and killers where you kind of have to play along. I mean, I don't know what you have to do because I've never been in this situation, thank God, but these people get angry and you can't control them, you know? So it just reminded me of that movie because he said that phrase a couple times to different women. And that kind of phrase is always, it's helped me, John. It's like, you know, one of those insulting things that puts a woman in her place or puts her down or makes her feel vulnerable.
Right. And that's what I was talking about, the triggers. I don't know if it was
Yeah.
the same kind of trigger each time. It was
It was probably a different kind.
You know, with each woman that he killed. But there was this moment of, that gets back to Dori's comment at the beginning of our podcast here. You know, what turned it on? What switch happened? And the switch,
Right.
a trigger statement. And by the way, we all have that. We all have that in our brain, that something will just trigger something going, oh, I don't like that. It could be something very innocuous for most people, you know, like, I don't want to hear that. Or, oh, really? You know, you don't like this about me, or I did this. Oh, ooh. But most of us control that. This guy, boom, you know, that was it. And I think the other thing we're dealing with, he was a huge man, as you both said.
Huge.
6'7", almost 6'8", huge hands. And, you know, that power. But power, I want to say another thing, which is, I think, important for our audience, and that is about how the police reacted to this. And again, why they need us is because the police were really wrong. You know, the police were, you know, saying, well, he felt he got a kick out of the power. No, he didn't get a kick out of the power. My analysis is that it wasn't about power. It was this just totally, you know, ineptness of him. And again, this triggering. I do have some thoughts on a diagnosis for this guy, which I'll get to if you ask me. But
Oh, John,
again,
what
other
is the
questions?
diagnosis? No, well, you know, going back to what I said, it's like he was messy. Like he just didn't really, it wasn't planned. It was just stupid. You know, it was like,
Yeah.
you know, can I mention one thing? When we were
Absolutely.
talking about the family or the wife, I found an article from ABC News, Happy Face Killer's daughter, Melissa Moore, on moving forward, uniting with other family members of serial killers. She's absolutely beautiful, like beautiful woman.
That's the movie. That's the movie that just came out, is about the daughter
And
knowing, confronting the father and realizing he is the happy face killer.
There he is.
He's not bad looking. He's not bad looking.
I thought he was
No.
a good-looking man. You know.
Speaking of good looking,
Thank you,
why is
Dr.
this?
John. Thank
Yeah,
you for
exactly.
confirming, Dr.
Yes, we think he's hot. What about this? What about this Ed Gein that they're doing in that series? He's too good looking. Like, that guy's hot. Ed
Oh
Gein
yeah,
didn't-
Charlie.
I didn't see that.
What's that? What's up with that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah,
We're throwing
anyway.
it back, everybody.
But
We're
I will
throwing it
say,
back.
Dori did
Yeah.
say Ed Gein was cute, which kind of, you know, startled me.
Yeah. Well, he was cute, but he wasn't hot.
He wasn't hot, but and not as the killer, and as the killer. But back in the day, they showed one photo over and over and over
Right.
again in that
Where he looks
documentary,
good.
and I'm like, you know what? Bangable.
Bangable.
Yeah. But where were we at
Jespersen,
before
not
we
my
went
type.
off on that tangent
Well,
of that game?
I was just talking about Melissa Moore, and she's 36 and has kids of her own, and she's sort of dealing with, the repercussions of having a serial killer father and sort of being, not knowing what was going on growing up and learning later, all that. I didn't read the whole thing. I skimmed it just so I could mention it. But
that leads me to, you both talked about that Laverne and John, I can't pronounce his last name, John S., that confessed to the murders. And what a bizarre situation that was. Laverne,
the Laverne,
to get back at this 18 year younger than her boyfriend. And so she frames him for the Happy Face murders. I think that's bizarre, but she ends up in prison as well, sort of like, gotcha.
She was happy about it. Her daughter was like, she was happy that she was protected.
Yeah.
So that the boyfriend couldn't hurt her anymore.
Wow. That was an interesting twist to this whole thing.
A phone call was placed anonymously to the sheriff's office in Portland. A person by the name of John Sosnowski apparently was involved with the murder of the person found in the Columbia Gorge. This phone call was from Laverne Pavlinac, John Sosnowski's live-in roommate.
Are you aware the conversation is being recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
She said that on a Sunday night, John had asked her to pick him up from a local drinking establishment called JB's Lounge.
You pulled into the lot. What did you see?
I seen John chatting with a young lady.
The girl was laying on the ground, and she rolled down the window and says, "Is she sick or what?" And John says, "No, it's worse than that. She's dead." John was responsible for Tanya's death. This is what she told us.
And then the other thing I thought was, I don't know how both of you reacted to this. I'm curious. They showed Laverne getting out of prison, and everybody's happy and hugging her and all this. And I don't know, something hit me strange about that. If you're a relative who gets out of prison after X number of years or decades and coming out of jail, it just seems so loving and embracing. I don't know, maybe that says something about me. I think I'd be a little more standoffish.
Wait a second. I think we need to dissect. I think, Stacey, we need to be the doctors. Wait a second. You're saying that Laverne and her loved ones were too loving on her? Or that Laverne was too hugging with them? Whereas if you, John, got out of prison, you would be like, whoop, to your wife and to your kids. Hey, pause off, everybody. I just got out of prison. I want some time alone. I need some time to myself.
Yeah, I think I would. I think I'd be a little shy and like, am I really accepted here? But you came out of prison bursting out and everybody's hugging and kissing her.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm
not sure how I feel about that. I'm sort of on the fence. I mean, maybe she smelled bad. I don't know.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Could have been.
But
my family would be very happy to see me and my friends, and I would be very happy as well. So the fact that both of you pondered this is actually shocking to me.
I didn't really ponder it.
Somebody, Dori, if you, now that I, know you and consider you a friend, I'll be there when you get out of prison, but
I'm not going to hug you.
I'm not going to be hugging you real tight. I'm sorry.
I'll make sure.
Okay.
I'll totally cool. I get it. And I appreciate both of you being there, but not touching me. So
I actually think I would hug you. So don't put me in the same camp as John.
I'd only hug you if you reach out, but I think I'd stand, with my hands to the side, kind of like.
You would go. She would go like this.
I almost feel like we should try. This probably is impossible, but we should try to get Laverne on an episode to talk to her.
That would be
Just
amazing.
Just to ask her a few quick questions.
Why does she
about-
look so period? She looks like she came out of 1977. Like her hair, her face,
Yeah,
all
looks
the, it's just this sort of period look. And even in what year was that when she got out?
The
Yeah.
90s, right?
Yeah, I mean, the 90s, well,
And what about that guy who was having this affair with her? He, again, not a bad looking guy, 18
No.
younger. And it looks,
no, not a bad looking
and she
guy.
looked like my grandma, So-
Yeah, she does. Like she looked old even when she was young.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
You
like
know?
the fact that all of our podcasts, and I am definitely the number one guilty about this, is who is attractive and
Yeah.
who is not. Like
Well,
we
gotta
rate,
be
we
serious.
rate attractiveness on serial killers and the people that these documentaries are about. I like that. That's how we differ. That's how we differ from other podcasts,
From the other
ladies
people.
and gentlemen.
Yeah, we're talking about hot versus not hot. But actually, I just thought of something from it, that when the mother saw the pictures of her daughter's clothing on TV and the jeans and the shirt with the flower, I felt so bad for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She even thought, I think this was Tanya, I believe. Was this Tanya?
Yes.
Okay. So, and Tanya had a sister as well that they interviewed, right? I
Yes.
just want to make sure I'm on the same
Yes.
page. But when she said it broke her heart, and she said she also had this feeling about her before she went out that night because she had talked to her or something. It just made me sad, to see your kids' clothing. I mean, I don't know what I would do if I saw that.
That would be,
And she knew,
horrible.
and she had to remember a blemish on her skin. So anyway, John.
And I think that's one of the, we like to really give messages in our podcast here. And I think that's one of the social messages to give, this whole idea of women going out there and hooking up casually with strangers. And this might be some kind of romantic sexual fantasy that people have, but how dangerous it is to just be hooking up with somebody that you don't know. And, please teach your children not to be going out there and doing this. And, it wasn't like Tanya was totally drunk and not in control of herself. She willingly put herself in this situation. I mean, the Keith Jespersen said, as soon as Tanya saw him, she kind of ran up to him and hugged him, a stranger, So I think that's a warning that we have to give people, is that this is a dangerous situation. These whole bar
Warning.
stuff.
It's a warning, but it's our society. Like people go to bar, like it there is a fear. I keep saying it, like there's I think nowadays too, and this was in the 90s. So it was really going out and meeting people in
True.
person. But nowadays it adds, with all the apps and just like randomly like meeting people, that's not any better anyway. So so I think if we're teaching a lesson, like obviously tell somebody where you're going, make sure you have maybe a friend or two with you, whatever. I think that's like the basics and it's understandable. But yeah, our world is just like here was a guy who had never killed before Tanya, who suddenly that night was like, yep, she hugged me. It was weird. Other things triggered it. I'm just going to murder you. Like nobody saw coming, and then he got probably the bug in him to go out and do it again and again.
And again, I want to point out that it wasn't like a lot of killers we're going to talk about. It wasn't a sexual perversion. He wanted to get laid. He was looking to get laid, like, sorry to say of my gender, but a lot of guys do. And it wasn't weird sex. It seemed like it was conventional sex, but it was this whole trigger thing. They all said something that just didn't sit right with Keith, and boom, he exploded. And then, of course, with his physicality, it didn't take much for him to, kill these women. So very sad and very dangerous situation. That's why I think be enthralled, audience, with this story, because this is the way it typically is. I think the statistic is that 80% of all killings are domestic killings by someone that you know. So it's not hunters and, the Silence of the Lamb killer, etc. These are people that, are familiar with you and in our environment. So that's the message here. It's dangerous out there.
What made me like when he talked about the smiley face is like, well, I just made 2 eyes and a crescent smile. Just like the way he said it, I was like, who says that?
Yeah. And
why?
There again, why Dori said
why?
at the beginning it was so hard to watch is because there was this mundaneness to him. It was like, yeah, okay, this way. And it goes to his, mental state, which, drum roll, let me talk about a diagnosis. I don't know if I'm going to do this on every episode because, it's on the borderline of not correct for me to give diagnosis on the media, but my analysis of him is that he's a schizoid personality, and that's a very interesting kind of mental disorder. They really have very little affect. They don't feel sorry for people. They have a hard time recognizing their own emotions, let alone someone else's emotion. And this guy fits exactly that pattern, and socially ignorant, not picking up social cues. And again, I go back to
John, I think you could hear that. No, I think you could hear that during the tapes, right? Like with the police and just how like nonchalant he is about talking about things. There's no emotion, there's no remorse, there's no nothing. It's just kind of like ho ho ho, like Stacey keeps doing the ho ho ho, like here I. But he's just like, oh yeah, and then she wanted me, so of course I'm gonna have sex with her, and then she did. Like he's just talking like he's talking about the weather.
Right. 2 eyes and a crescent smile.
Yeah.
And I just put that on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I am the killer. I saw her jeans were, he ripped the front of her jeans.
I had seen paper clippings which told me that 2 people were being investigated for murder of Tanya Bennett. So I started writing bathroom walls. I scrawled out on the wall that I killed Tanya Bennett in January 1990.
It was found in a men's room at a truck stop in Livingston, Montana. And it says January 21st, 90. Killed Tanya Bennett in Portland. 2 people got the blame, so I can kill again. Cut off buttons on jeans. Proof. That's written on the door in ink.
So you're saying schizophrenia? Is that what you're saying, John?
No. Schizoid
okay, so it's
personality. It's different.
A schizoid personality. Schizoid?
That would be what we would call in my field a differential diagnosis is schizophrenia or schizoaffective personality. But that entails that there has to be some break with reality. There was no break with reality with this guy. He didn't have any hallucinations, delusions. He didn't, put on a happy face mask and, etc. He was very much in reality, but a simple, socially inept guy. It's a serious mental illness, by the way. John,
I'm just curious, who else, like of the, like maybe of more popular serial killers or killers, who else has that you think has that diagnosis of like some other like more famous killers? Anybody who comes to mind?
Hard question. It could have been Dahmer. Could have been Dahmer have that as one of the diagnoses that he could be characterized with. Just kind of
He had a similar bumbling sort of,
Yeah.
well, we went to the bar and he wanted a few
Picked up a
beers and
guy,
then I ate his heart.
Yeah, right.
It
Yeah.
was like sort of really simple, and he ate a TV dinner with his grandma.
Yeah. I
And
wanted to,
then he killed.
one of the statements I remember from the Dahmer cases, I just wanted, to be so close to them that I wanted to ingest them, and eat them, it's like, well, yeah, da-da. And Jespersen has that same kind of quality. So that would be one I would say, Dori, that I could probably say it's at least one of his diets.
One problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least one of his problems. So interesting.
How old is he now? Like, did we figure that out? How old?
Good question.
Because he's still in prison, sir. He's still alive.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think they ever gave an age stamp.
I think our resident Googler, Stacey, is on it right now. She loves to look up facts. We'll have that actual age in just a few seconds. I can't see that, Stacey. Can you tell us, please?
He is, drumroll, 70 years old.
Wow.
Young.
He was born in 55, April 6th, 55.
Yeah.
And he's, Canadian American serial killer known as the Happy Face Killer. And yeah, there he is. Yeah.
To me, that's still young.
Yeah, he's young. It's like my mom. Not my mom's age. It's not true.
Yeah,
sorry, Mom.
Like your mom's not going to be saying that on
Well, my mom's
public
older.
airways here.
Yes.
One of the other things that we haven't talked about and mention is that this whole idea of him growing up and not fitting in. And I think that's a sad aspect of this. And again, another lesson for the audience. Here's this big oaf of a guy, all his whole life as a kid. He was probably the biggest kid in the class and kind of, and again, as we're characterizing him, not that bright, and what happens to kids? They get, singled out, teased, they get rejected. You're not part of the in-group. And that's another part of this guy's story that I think is so sad. Not that it contributed necessarily to his killings, but look what happens to kids when you stand out or something different about you.
And they said like he wasn't popular. He wasn't, even though of his height, he didn't play basketball. He wasn't, so like he wasn't in the quote unquote in crowd. And bullying to children is one of the worst things that you can do. And a lot of these killers have been known to have been bullied as kids.
Absolutely. And
does it start with them? I mean, does it start because there is something inherently wrong with them and then or is it that people just pick on them and then it develops? I mean, because I don't think everybody that gets bullied, I was bullied very severely. And as far as I know, I think I was bullied. But, I was severely bullied and that's another topic. But, and, obviously something didn't snap. So, John, thoughts?
Well, it certainly contributed to him having this morose, depressed kind of continence about him, but I don't think it was the root cause. I don't think it, that was what made him kill people, but he had a whole lifetime of being on the outskirts of society. And that's what's sad about what we're talking about. And by the way, I, in my field, was an early voice bringing up how detrimental teasing and bullying is to kids. And I'll tell you, 25, 30 years ago, I'm dating myself, but, people would be poo-pooing me. I'd be giving parent lectures and lectures in the community and going, teasing and bullying, this is what we see in kids, and this is the danger. And I would get hecklers in the audience, especially men and dads, going, oh, that's not a problem. In fact, what I tell my kid is some kid teases you, you go there next day and punch him in the face, And it's like, really? How primitive is that? So teasing and bullying is, a huge problem in our society. And he's the epitome of one thing I want to point out, which is very important. He gets ostracized by the peer group and child society because of his size, which he can't do anything about. And kids get ostracized for having a big nose, or when you're a child, for a while your ears might be sticking out and you look kind of funny, until you grow into your adult face, etc. Or you have a funny hairdo because your parents are old-fashioned or something like that, or you have to wear hand-me-down clothes.
Right. It's a lot of the clothing and the stuff is a big part of that, because kids don't fit in. They're not wearing, especially in these areas out here.
And there's nothing you can do about it as a child. You're not in control of your life. And so that cuts to the core. It cuts to the core of who you are. And that's why it hurts so much, is because, there's nothing I can do about my big nose, until
it also sounds like too, like as he grew up, like they didn't talk about friends of his, like male friends of his, or that he had any. And granted, he was on the road all the time and, as a truck driver, but no one mentioned anything about a friend, which is sad, sad to me.
Again,
very sad.
We're on a very important track here, which is that he was, again, outside of society. And that you do, I think we'll find, I might be wrong, but check this in future episodes. I think this is going to be a
common theme,
a thread of a lot of the killers that we're going to do outside of society.
Well, Dahmer.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly not Ted Bundy. He was like popular. I don't know if he had friends, but
Gacy had a lot of friends. I keep bringing up Gacy, like that's the only one I know. But it's like I've watched so much on John Wayne Gacy, but he was very popular. He knew a ton of
fascinating.
People. So,
well, he was also a clown, So as we talked about,
clowns have a lot of friends.
Clowns. Clowns definitely have friends. What if you're a sad clown? Do you have friends, or is it just happy clowns? John Wayne Gacy, didn't he have like a smile? Like it's like these smiles, these like sort of metaphorically opposite of what's going on inside of these people, happy face killer.
That's what's scary about them, by the way. Maybe we should do a whole episode on clowns and why they're so scary. I got a lot of research on that, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. Is that your research, John?
Well, I was called into a case in, where is that? Baraboo, Wisconsin, about a young man who tortured another young man. And Baraboo was the winter home of Ringling Brothers Circus. But back to clowns, one of the things, a little tease to the audience, if we do have an episode on that.
I love this.
It's about the mask and the costume being someone that, who's behind that. That's what's scary about it.
Yeah. It's like being an actor. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well, the unknown
like when
is really scary.
When we were actors. No, but that is true. It is. Do you think it's a conscious choice of theirs, or is it something they're attracted to?
What do you mean? Being a clown?
Like let's say Gacy's a clown, but he's also a murderer. Is it like a cover, or is it just ironic? Is it something Gacy, he planned?
With Gacy, I think it was a cover, but a lot of people who are attracted to being a clown truly want to entertain and be funny with, children and stuff like that. They're not all pedophiles and killers. And
we're not bashing clowns.
We're not
a podcast that bashes clowns.
No.
We are very supportive of the clown community.
We're pro-clown.
Pro-clown.
We don't want the clown union, coming after.
No, I certainly don't want any memes chasing me, which reminds me of one thing. When I was little, my mom hired this is a different story than the Gacy clown. My mom hired a clown for my third or fourth, maybe my third birthday. And the doorbell rang and it was a bunch of, as my mom said, memes. It's a bunch of mimes. And my mom told them to go home. The clown wasn't available. They sent a bunch of mimes.
Oh,
and all the kids started screaming. So I didn't have a clown or a meme. Yeah. But no, we're not against clowns.
Here, I definitely think we're veering off track in this.
No, it's fine. It happens.
I mean,
bring us back to reality here, Dori.
The one thing I just wanted to just really quickly ask, because you brought it up, Stacey, and we didn't go into it too much, is that Julie, that woman to me and her son were the most tragic people in the whole documentary, because his mother was like obviously struggling with drugs, right? And then she gets involved with him. Like they were boyfriend, girlfriend, right? She and Keith were dating each other.
He said that he'd been friends with Julie for a while and they hooked back up, I think a week and a half, 2 weeks before.
I wanted to get off the road. I don't want to drive truck all my life. She wanted to go tell her mom that we were getting married.
So it was your understanding at that point that you guys were going to settle down, get together, and maybe get a house?
I didn't think at that time. I was really thinking about whether it would really actually work. But I was saying, hey, I'll get laid.
It became clear to me that Keith Jespersen is all about Keith Jespersen.
And then he kills her, and that son was the most tragic person in the whole documentary to me.
They told me they had found my mom dead on the side of the Highway 14 up in the Columbia River Gorge. Started to walk home, collapsed in the middle of the street. You can't explain it. I mean, you can't explain the feeling, you know. I just basically fell to the ground. I show up to the coroner's office, and my mom was laying on a metal slab table with a white sheet up to her chest and a bruise from cheek to cheek as dark as this table, brush marks on the side of her face. Physically seeing her and then hearing how she got that way. It's horrible. That's my last image of my mother.
I think there's an interesting point about that son, which very interesting point for the audience. Notice his transformation. He said, everyone, just FYI to the audience, you know, when the trial first started, I wanted to bring a gun in and put a
Right, I said that in the beginning. Yeah.
Put a bullet in his head.
Head.
But did you notice later on in the documentary, he said, you know what? He's rotting in jail. If I would have put a bullet in his head, and then he wanted to kill himself. He said, the plan was, I'll put a bullet in his head and then kill myself. But I couldn't bring a gun into the courtroom. Interesting, right? But then he said at the end, you know what? If I would have done that, he wins.
Right.
It's so important for people to hear. He wins. It's like getting revenge against somebody who does something wrong to you. You know, if you know, fight fire with fire, the person wins.
I think Stacey did bring this all up in the beginning, and I was listening, Stacey, but I think because you said it and I've been thinking about it throughout the whole time that we've been talking, it just makes me like he's the one that I would want to root for the most out of everybody.
But let me finish my transition that he took, which is that at the end he said, you know what? He's rotting in jail, and that's the ultimate, you know, punishment. He's just suffering. And I thought that was a, you know, interesting transition for a person to take, you know, from I'm going to shoot him in the head to, you know, let him rot.
The feeling of wanting to do something versus doing something are two different things. And the healthy person has a feeling and then knows that they shouldn't do it and they can reconcile it maybe sometime. But there's other people who, I mean, but I don't know what I would have felt if it was my child or something. I mean, I don't know how I would
think you would feel,
that.
you know, you'd like to kill that person, you know.
Yeah.
But I thought, and I thought that was very admirable of that son to say, you know, I've got over that and let him rot.
Yeah.
Even more.
Let him rot.
That's even more.
Exactly.
I think with this documentary, watching this one, I am much more interested in everybody else than of Jespersen. Like, I really don't, like, I really have no desire to look him up, and like, I'm not like fascinated by him. I was much more fascinated by those who spoke about him and who were affected by him.
I agree. And as you heard me say early on in our podcast here, is that I wish the documentary would have taken a different twist, and we heard more from the wife, the parents, possible friends. But yeah, you're right. I wanted to know more about that. Again, why we're doing this podcast, because so many of these media presentations of these people, these killers and cults and multi-level marketing people, what's the why behind it, and what's behind them, and let's talk about this. That to me is the most interesting thing about all of these things. You're right. I don't want to know any more about Keith. He's pretty simple.
No. Yeah, he's kind of boring.
I hope for this one that many clowns listen to it. That's my hope, is that all the clowns listen to this episode.
We really want to
spread the word to your local circuses.
Do you mean clowns in a kind of wide bandwidth? Like, I used to call my children clowns. You clowns.
Yes, I hope your kids are listening, John. I definitely hope your clowns are listening.
They better be.
So there you have it, everybody. I think our next episode after this one is going to be a doozy. I think we're going to have, we already know what that one is. We won't ruin the surprise for everybody, but we may be discussing a cult or a crime. Our theme music is written and performed by Midnight Current, and you can hear more from them on SoundCloud. Please visit PodCandyPodcast.com to learn more about us and listen to all of our episodes, or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much.
PodCandy!